Come through, Queen. I wanna see ya. Come through, Queen. Hi everyone, it's Brendan, and this is Come Through Queen. And I am welcomed by a legend in these parts, all the way from Dublin. Conor Behan is back.
Thank you for having me. Hello, a legend. Oh my god. To what do I earn that honor?
Actually, maybe that was an exaggeration. Sorry.
Oh, cutting me straight down to size. Well, yes.
Thank you for joining us, Conor. How's Ireland this time of
It is
year?
good. It's well, thank you for having me. It's good. We are having a sunny summer's day today, thank God, but we've had it weirdly cold a week or two. Our summers are very hit and miss, so there's talk of a heat wave. Not quite what you guys are having, but I'm hoping we get a little more sunshine. And Pride is soon. Pride is next week.
Oh, fun. Do you have any Pride plans?
I'm just working a lot. I'm actually DJing at the National Concert Hall this week, and then next
Oh.
week I have like some corporate stuff, and then some big pride parties on the Saturday. Like I don't know about you, but I measure out like dates and times and like concerts and gigs and shows I'm going to, but also stuff I have on. The fact that I look at the diary and go, Pride is in a week and a half. I'm like, whoa! Like the year has gone like that.
I know, and just like this month in general, like we had Brooklyn Pride a couple weeks ago,
Oh yeah.
which like for me that is the one that I prefer. I'm actually not going to be in town for Pride weekends for like Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
but I've got a couple events. Like I'm going to like the opening of the Stonewall Visitor Center next
Oh,
week and like other pridey things during the week, so that should be fun.
may I ask, is the Stonewall Visitor Center like near where the bar is, or is it somewhere else?
It's right next door.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, fab. I mean, look, I know part of your day job is very much busy for Pride anyway, but yeah,
Hmm.
I think when your work involves Pride stuff, I'm always like, when do I have my little pre or post Pride cocktail? I'm like, the week after, like early July.
Yeah, I at least got to have fun during Brooklyn Pride. It's a lot more chill, so I just got to
Hmm.
like gab
It looks
and
fun.
laugh with friends. And the parade is actually at twilight, so it's like so much better. It's like dusk, and so it's like cooler, and the cheerleaders and community leaders and all of that is the focus, which I love.
Fab. I haven't thought of that being a Twilight. Very interesting. I need to go one year.
Yeah, speaking of Twilight and community leaders, you recently went um you recently went to LuAnn show in Dublin.
Yes, I did a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was the Monday of the June bank holiday weekend here, so like the first Monday of June, which is like the first Monday in May. LuAnn brought Mary F. Kill, her new cabaret show, which is now back in the US for the summer, I believe, to Dublin for her first ever. She was first time in Dublin just as a person visiting, and her first time
Sure.
performing. She was playing a venue that was like 1,200 capacity venue, and it was basically sold out, which I could not believe, because when they announced it I thought, oh, if this is like 60-70% sold, that will be an achievement, because it still feels like the show is very niche here, and yet it was packed. The crowd were so into it. They were like, it was one of the loudest crowds I've ever heard at any show. I have seen Madonna live 6 different times.
Mhm.
I've seen pop star. I have seen shows in Ireland, all around the world, literally in New York, where you name it, I've seen a show there. And I was like, this crowd for LuAnn is the loudest I've ever heard. It was crazy.
Was it your first time seeing Lou live?
Yes, it was my first time seeing her in person. Actually, one of my first time seeing, like, still one of the few housewives I've seen in person. So it was just like, it was so surreal. And the weird thing about it is, I know in my heart of hearts that she can't sing. And at the show, I was like, she can't really sing. And yet, I was completely entranced and taken up by it and like under her spell. At one point, she sung a Fleetwood Mac song, and I started to get
Oh
emotional.
my
And I was
god.
like, I literally had to have an out of body moment and go, you can't get emotional at this woman ruining what the fuck, the song Thunder Only Happens When It's Raining, that one, that
Mhm.
Fleetwood Mac song. Just like, it just, one of my favorite things I kept thinking about was she sung Man I Feel Like a Woman, which is kind of like a bachelorette party banger. It's one of those
Right.
songs that people go off for anyway. So she's singing that, and the crowd in Dublin were amazing. They sung along to every word of every song, including hers. But like, we were all singing the verse at the one, and when she went to the chorus, we were all like, "Whoa, oh, oh, oh." She's like, "Whoa, oh, oh, oh." no, she was so many like keys lower down on the course. I was like, this is so funny. But you know what? I have to say, I was never bored. I was thoroughly entertained, and I actually would recommend seeing her live. I was like, will this be worth it? And it kind of was.
I will say there's something about
Just
charisma, just like
uniqueness.
getting somebody through a performance like that. I've seen her live a couple of times. One was a Christmas show at Studio. I almost said Studio 54, 54 Below. Two very different venues, and it was great. It was amazing. And
Yeah, it's yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's just like she does have the star power. I think she's come a long ways from like her early performances of like Money Can't Buy You Class back in the like Clubhouse.
Yeah.
Even Girl
What's
Code, she's jumped leaps and bounds.
which she performed. She performed Girl Code, which I couldn't believe. Like there were so many wild things. Like when she did her own songs, everyone went crazy, and people knew the verses. They knew all the words. She didn't perform Feeling Giovanni. They played it as like a video interlude near the end, so
Sure.
she could costume change, and people sung along to that, and to the point where people were singing along to video and going ooh ooh ooh, which is like a thing people do here when they're really into something.
Mm-hmm.
It just and like the crowd, I do think there was this weird sense of we all couldn't believe she was there and we were all into the same thing because like she does like chat with the audience and they play a game of Marry F Kill where she's given names of people and she says Marry F Kill and then they do it with the crowd as well.
Right.
And at one point they're setting up these different names and she just kind of goes in passing, oh, does anyone watch Below Deck here? And the whole place went ah! Like
Oh my
screamed. I was like,
god.
we are all so starved of like our Bravo connections that when we have them in the same room, we're feral. Like, if you think the BravoCon audience is crazy, like at one point she went, "You guys are so crazy, and it's a Monday night. What do you like on a Friday or Saturday?" I was like, "This is unhinged." Like, yeah. And she ended up in the George afterwards. She was in the same DJ booth that I'm in every week, which so I was there the next week, being like, LuAnn has been here.
Yeah.
There's a video of her in the George going viral.
Yes, and for people who don't know, the George is a gay club in Dublin that
Yes.
Connor works at a lot of the time.
Yes. Yes, and LuAnn was there. So I couldn't believe how much fun it was because the ticket was expensive. Like I like after fees, the ticket was like €75, which is so sick. Like that's disgusting.
Oh my god.
And yet, my one regret, she was selling a t-shirt with her mugshot on it, and I didn't realize until after, and I didn't buy one, and I'm sickened.
Oh, well, maybe you can get it on like Etsy or something.
I might have to. I'm like, I need that. Like that's high art to me.
Amazing. Well, that's a great review. I say if you can, if she's coming to your town, go see her. Why not?
Yeah, honestly, and to be fair, she has like a band. She's a guitarist, like a piano player and a drummer. So like you actually get like I've gone to pop stars recently where they don't have a band at all. I was like, not LuAnn having more musicians than Madonna and Girls Live. Like, what is
Oh
happening
my
here?
god. Should we move on to a little bit of news that's coming
Yes.
out from Beverly Hills? It's just a small little news item. So,
Hmm.
uh, the new Beverly Hills star Bozoma Saint John has been teasing a Badass season 14. She's at Cannes Lions, which like because she's actually like an important person.
In marketing, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
marketing conference, right?
Yeah.
It's a big marketing world thing. Yeah, yeah,
So she said filming Housewives so far is badass, using her favorite adjective as she's known on Instagram as Badass Boz. She said, quote, now if you want to okay, so this is kind of like a word salad of a quote. Now, if you want to can like a housewives or marketing legend, they're actually one and the same. Start with a glass of rosé. It will help smooth the day, and then have it intermittently throughout. It will also help with all the conversations you need to have. That kind of sounded like LuAnn's song lyrics, actually.
yeah. If you want to party in Cannes Lion and drink rosé all day, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're seconds away from Bozoma dropping a song. It feels
Are
like.
you excited for her? I am.
I am because as someone with such a background in marketing that she has, where she's worked with all these big brands, like I'm like, okay, she's going to be a big personality, and also I'm fascinated by these people with big careers doing housewives because I'm like, why? Like you must really want it, or you must really want to get in the mix. And there has been a few like little clips of them filming things, and there was that video last week of Kyle and Dorit getting into it at some gay club thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, let's see. I mean, last season was fine; it wasn't bad, but like Beverly Hills is so strange. Like it's either boring or brilliant. It's so like other Housewives shows are like, oh, it's not their best season, but I'm entertained. Beverly Hills are like, oh my god, or you're like glued. There, it's so one or the other,
Yeah,
you
and,
know?
like, last season did have its moments that,
Yeah,
it had, like, Name 'Em, and then it had Denise with the coat, and just, like, all of that
Merce in the
stuff,
Purse was good.
Merce in the Purse, I'm just, like, bummed about Crystal.
Same, and like they keep these videos keep emerging. Like, here's Crystal at this random rap concert, and she's like so fun. And I'm like, I really feel like the more I think about the Crystal thing, the more I'm like, they just pegged her as the quote unquote whiny millennial, and they couldn't get her out of that box. Like, you just felt like the whole show, and Andy and Kyle in particular were like, you're just like an annoying millennial, and I'm like, she's just from a different generation to you. Like, let it go.
And she started to, like, break out of her shell last season.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like reading between the tea leaves and what Anne Marie has been up to in the press since that, like, they really did edit around some of Anna Marie's beliefs for the sake of not having it in the show. And I think Crystal weirdly got caught in that crossfire because it sounds like she put it to Anna Marie, and tried to challenge her. So anyway, yes, looking forward to Bozoma. I mean, wonder when that will air. Like, when did they start filming? Like 2 months
I
ago?
guess, I mean, I probably fall, right?
Yeah, and then obviously OC is back soon, but like New York, they're on their last cast trip. What else is Atlanta? You know, like
Atlanta's
we'll
another
see,
story.
we'll see, we'll see, we'll see.
Yeah, what is okay? Let's think about this for a second. So we get OC. It looks like it's a really strong season.
Mm-hmm.
Atlanta's filming, and from what we've heard, it's a mess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Atlanta back in the day also used to do the thing, and I don't know if they'll do it this time. They used to do the thing where they would still be filming and episodes would start airing.
I remember that back when they did very long seasons, or like you knew they were doing minimum 20 main episodes, and so the tail end would kind of catch up, and then there'd be the reunion. I don't know, like it was weird that kind of week or two about a month ago where there was just no Housewives show airing, and someone was like, all those tweets that went viral of this is the first time since Obama was elected there hasn't been a Housewives episode on. I was like, whoa, this is dark.
Yeah.
Like, we're in the fallow period. But then I think the way people watch the shows is different, and I was joking with you before we started, like I couldn't believe hearing Charlie XCX, the British pop star, was into Housewives, and she made a point of saying she likes Salt Lake City.
Mm-hmm.
And I am noticing, particularly in this side of the world, because people who are coming to Housewives, in the last 4 or 5 years, people are entering at different points. They're entering with these newer shows with fewer seasons, or they're now going back and rewatching ones they didn't watch at the time.
Yeah.
So I think the audience is still engaged with the material. It's just in the real world where there's a bit of a backlog or a bit of a delay. But maybe by the end of the year we'll be back in full flow and it'll feel fine. It just does feel a little bit like I'm not one of those doom mongering people who's like, "Ah,
Mm-hmm.
franchise is dead, it's over." But it does feel like with the weirdness about what's allegedly happened in Atlanta, all the focus on Andy's like antics or alleged antics, the weirdness about Girls Trip in that season that's not going to air.
New Jersey
Like,
not getting a reunion.
yes, I was just going to say, or even to be honest, this weird thing where, you know, reality of on teas in Salt Lake City was such a moment, but also
Mm-hmm.
the sense that, like, well, Monica's not coming back, so what are you going to do? Even Charlie XCX on Watch What Happens being like, I love Monica, you should bring her back. And he's like, here's your surprise, Whitney Rose. Like, so I'm curious. Yeah, I don't think the franchise is dead really, but I do for the first time kind of go, guys, what's going on? Because watching the reaction to LuAnn at that show recently, and even when she was in London for Mighty Hoopla and her other show she did there,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, there are still people coming to this, and there's still people who, by the way, I know people who went to see her at Mighty Hoopla who just only know the songs, which is so funny to me. They're like, she's on one of them shows. I love this song. They know me anyway.
That's
Anyway,
wild.
yeah. So it's not. I actually don't think it's dead, but I do kind of go, this is a weird cross point because there's a lot of these reality shows in general that have been on a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and in an era of TikTok being the main thing people watch on their phone versus TV, I'm just like, where is it gonna go? It does feel like a weird crossroads. Maybe I'm just being paranoid.
No, I mean it. I think right now we're in summer, and there's
Yeah.
like two shows airing. One's a newer season that didn't get all the buzz, and then one's a classic that people are saying that's like having a bad season. Though I was thoroughly entertained by Jersey this week,
Oh, same. Yeah.
which we'll get into. But yeah, the state of Housewives is interesting.
I think Girls Trip will still come back. Like I think that format still has legs. They just need to. I would even say if they cast 6 random women from different cities, that would be enough. They don't even need to be like supersized 10 people cast. You know, like I
Hmm.
think that still has a lot of legs. I mean, obviously, even just Pump Rose being on this little break is interesting, but by the same time token, the Valley popped off in a way I don't think anyone expected. So
Right.
it's just a funny time for the Bravo shows. I still feel bad I don't watch Summer House, but like maybe now it's on a break, I can go back and indulge.
Well, they just had their most popular season, basically. So it's interesting that those shows are on the up and up. Um,
Yeah.
and then like Below Deck, what's happening with Below Deck? I don't know.
Well, I know one of the so whatever one had the sexual harassment controversy.
Hmm.
One of them, one of them has basically had a season pulled over some allegedly to Kathy Griffin is the over some alleged bad behavior. So there's one season not airing, but I believe, I mean, the other ones are still doing well, aren't they? I was under the impression Below Deck is like gangbusters.
Yeah, I just like it's hard for me because I was so wrapped into like the Kate Chastain and the Hannah of it all for their
Mm-hmm.
first two, and then they left, and so I just haven't gotten back in really. Though
And Traders was my introduction to Kate, which is funny. Sorry, you were saying.
no. That's about it.
Well, yeah, we pray for more Housewives shows, but actually, as you said, I think Jersey was good this week. What we have at the moment isn't bad. It's just not a lot of it.
Yeah. So do you want to on that? Do you want to jump into Jersey?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so we're coming straight off of the Fuda Giudice sit down.
I don't know how I feel about this because, in one way, I really admire Rachel putting it to Teresa at all
Mm-hmm.
because I think that's hard to do when you're newer on the show.
Sure.
By the same token, it does feel a bit sweaty. It does read as a bit like, I'm going to make my mark. I'm going to make my mark on the show and fight with Teresa.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit like, I go back and forth, but I do kind of overall kind of like Rachel. But this fight is wild. It's just wild.
The thing that I like about a lot of what's happening right now is that Jersey from the jump has always been a little sweaty. There's always been
Yeah.
these like side characters and people trying to like get in there, like with like Teresa's soldiers back in the day, the Kims, like all of those folks. This still feels like Real Housewives of New Jersey to me, just with like a few different faces.
That's true. And one of the things that was good about last season was Danielle and Rachel, for the first time in forever on Jersey, felt like they fit into this established group.
Hmm.
And I think that's to their credit. And like, if Rachel wants to keep that momentum going, she does have to have conflict with somebody, you know, in theory. So if you're going to have conflict with anyone, why not go to the big dog, I suppose? You know, it's, and also because the husbands get so much more in the mix on Jersey,
Yeah.
it's funny watching John and Louis either in Louis' case say nothing or in John's case almost try and take the lead. Can I ask a slightly maybe stupid question?
Sure.
Who is John Fugazi? Is he like a famous drug dealer?
That
She
is,
keeps bringing that up. I was trying to Google it today. I'm like, who is John Fugazi?
I don't really know. And that is a good question. What I assumed was she was trying to maybe expose, maybe he changed his name or
Yeah.
something.
Okay. I think it's like a mob boss Italian reference of some kind. It's such a shame that Italian to the show, Dan isn't here to confirm. He's going to be listening back to this screaming, going, it's an Italian mobster. But yeah, that keeps coming up, and I'm like, that's a little bit lost to me. But I mean, trying to understand Teresa is like trying to understand 3 different languages at once. So, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I think it also it might.
Are you Googling it?
Yes. Okay. So the drama between Giudice and the Fudas has reached the fans, as Reality Blurb reports. So take that with a grain of salt. That they are
We're blurbing.
that they are now commenting negative reviews on his business, Valet King Hospitality. This upset Fuda, as he is now threatening to sue for slander. He responded to a 1-star review that said, Jane Fugazi with "thank you, key piece of evidence in the slander case." So I'm a little more confused than I was before I Googled.
Yeah, I think excuse me. I think he is some kind of mob figure
Okay.
or alleged mob figure. Anyways, well, that's neither here nor there. So that's one strand, but obviously then Jersey does that thing where we get like little snippets. I think the first big scene we got was Dolores with her mom and her daughter, and this Paulie business conversation comes
Hmm.
up again.
Yeah, it's like the mom and the daughter are both kind of like dragging Dolores to her face about like this situation. And then I did like the daughter made some little crack about, oh, you're hiring my mom as your office manager.
I also loved when he came in, they had been talking about this whole thing, and he kind of comes in out of nowhere. And the mom's like, "Oh, I didn't hear you come in." I think she was like, "Fuck, did you hear what I was saying?"
Right.
I'm like, he's gonna see it anyway. Like, it's a show, and he watches the show, so I wouldn't, it is what it is. But Dolores' mom, I think she's such a character. Like, and I love seeing Dolores's home life. This has been a weird season overall. And more than ever, she feels like the glue in the rock because
Sure.
she's obviously a peacemaker and she's able to see all sides in a very non-annoying way, but also her personal stuff feels really interesting this year.
Yeah. And full disclosure, Connor knows Dolores. uh, she's a fan of his. She listens to him on the radio in Dublin.
Well, to be fair, Paulie followed me on Instagram ages ago and apparently name checked me in some interview with an Irish journalist. And then when they were home at one point last year, was it earlier this year? They were listening to the show, and I got a video from, I think it was from Polly's page, but I opened the video and it was her being like, "Hey Connor, it's me and Polly. We're on our way." I think they were down the country somewhere and they were going back up to Tala or somewhere, I think, to see his family. We're on the road back to Tala and we're listening to you. Just want to say hello. And I was like, "Hi." And then I ended up playing a request for them on the radio. And she posted a video of herself listening to the show in her car. I was like, "This is wild."
And then
And then you met her and said she remembered
I
me.
was at BravoCon and I was on the carpet and I said to both of them, "Oh, I think you listened to my friend Connor when you're in Ireland." And they knew exactly who you were.
I just, yeah, it's funny. Like, listen, I actually don't follow many of the housewives online, and I kind of just sometimes just watch the show, and I don't engage in any other way. And there's probably things that Dolores and I don't agree on, I'm sure, but I do get the vibe that she's a decent person at the back of it. Like there's something about her. There's a warmth to her, not just because she's a fan of mine. But yeah, that was wild. Getting that video of her, I was like, "Oh my god, Dolores just sent me a video."
Yeah. And then just the amount of dogs the daughter has, and I know it's because she's a vet, but still, it's like whenever
I
they name the
know.
dogs, and there's a dog who has cancer, that's so sad.
I know. And even like you can tell all of them are so passionate about the dogs, and they're those people who have like a million dogs and they're like, "Oh, this one is blah blah blah," and they know the personalities and all the little intricacies, where I'm like, after three dogs, I would lose track.
Yeah.
So it is very sweet. And yeah, this stuff about Polly not being separated is interesting because I find it so interesting, the idea that the business thing is a commitment, and I find it interesting that Dolores is like, this is a sign of his commitment. Now, don't get me wrong, I still want to get married, but
Hmm.
this shows that he's serious, because I mean they live together in that really nice place. So yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting. I don't know where that's gonna go.
Yeah, me neither. We did get a family scene with Teresa and her blended family, and
Yeah,
it felt like we were setting up for. I mean, there's rumors that they're getting a spin-off of some sort, and this felt like it could have
really.
been like getting us like ingrained in the family a little more to set us up for a potential spin-off. But also, Gia's allegedly filming for that other show.
Oh, the Housewives kind of kids spin off, Kids in the City, Manhattan Legends, or whatever they're calling.
And they've
What are they
been
calling it?
they've been seen filming around the city.
Oh my god, you're gonna run into them. You're gonna like see Gia at Windows of the World. You're gonna be like, "There's
I
Gia."
don't think Gia comes to Park Slope.
You never know. Not you doxing yourself. Why don't we give the exact like street address while we're at it?
Okay, well it's
Yeah, I
two.
mean,
Just kidding.
213. Yeah, it's funny. We're seeing like, because Teresa is on a bit of an island at times, I feel like we're seeing more of the family stuff, and that always makes her more likable. So in a way, it's good. Like, there's stuff about Louis that makes my skin crawl, but it's so funny for both of them. I feel like their kids are such. Even, I know that, isn't Nicholas the youngest, the 21-year-old? He, is living with autism, and the idea that like
Hmm.
Teresa's so understanding and seems to really be like, "Yeah, why don't you bring him in here?" And what, like, that's that shows a softer side of her that we don't always see. So, that is kind of nice to have in the show, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just there's that, but it's also interesting, like Teresa talking about housewives drama and like her other steps on the older ones, like sitting there pretending to listen or like care about it. It's funny.
He's like, obviously, I hate Margaret, and the kid's like, "What's for dinner? I really don't give a fuck." Yeah, yeah,
I was
yeah.
surprised that Gia doesn't know how to make sauce yet.
Is that not something that an Italian American person learns, like, as a rite of passage when you turn 12, for example? Again, we'll have to ask Dan. This is a fact checking exercise.
Yeah.
I can't make my own sauce, so.
Well, I mean, like, I'm sure you can make like a corned beef and cabbage.
Is that what people think Irish dishes are?
Yeah.
Oh, corned beef? What the fuck is corned beef? Cabbage? No, God, I'm swearing so much. That's my most Irish trait, how much I swear.
That's okay. Um, uh, what else before we get to the limoncello party?
Well, obviously, because the party was a lot of the episode, a lot of this is set up, but I did find it interesting, like, Jen is trying to size up her relationship with Melissa, but also she is still really bothered by the Danielle thing. And then obviously as well, Teresa has her eye on Danielle because she's pissed off at Rachel and knows that Rachel's dead to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of eyeing Danielle like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. That kind of, because all of those setup scenes can be a bit kind of fillery sometimes, but I like seeing where the dynamics are because like Teresa does need as many friends as she can get.
Yeah, I'm kind of worried about Danielle. I just feel like she can easily be pushed too far. So I think the show might not be the best for her.
Yeah, and next week, I mean, not to jump ahead, but next week is the fight, it seems like.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that I mean, the one thing I was really, I mean, I suppose we're now kind of just fast forwarding to the housewarming for Melissa and Joe, because Danielle was the first to arrive, and they used that to give us the home tour, which I appreciate as someone who wants to see what their houses look like. I
Mm-hmm.
loved that. But also that strand that they've always had with Danielle where she's really striving and it's all aspirational for her and she wants a house like that, and that's a strand we haven't seen on the shows in a while, where she really wants to get to the next level and have more money and have a nicer place. And she's like, oh, I love the family room. Oh, I want that. Like, just them having that feels like from a different era of the show. So I was really interested in that strand reappearing this week.
The only comparison, and it's actually like a lot different because the goalposts are like further away, is
Mm-hmm.
Gina and OC and Heather Dubrow. Remember the house tour, the
Yeah.
Heather Dubrow house tour that Gina went on with like Shannon there, and Shannon was like kind of sulking, but Gina was very impressed.
I don't know if that was when Gina was in her Casita era, and then obviously when Gina started to move up in the world, she felt like Heather kind of dropped her, and there's this weird. It's funny because these are shows about wealth and class in one way, and sometimes when they actually make that more clear, it's always really interesting because you're like, oh yeah, I mean, like, we've been watching Melissa on the show for what, 12, 13 years. When did she join? Season 3? So like she's been on TV for over a decade, and
Mm-hmm.
like, of course someone that like Danielle would see the boutique and the nice house and the fame and go, that's a business model I aspire to.
Yeah, also just like I know a lot of online drama happens between seasons about Melissa's house. Like all the fans were like keeping track of her renovations and like calling the other iteration ugly. So it was nice of production to give her like this good ad for how nice her house looks now.
Her house looks nice. It's very like show home influencer house where it's all a little bit too bright and sparkly and white, and like when Diane was like, it's a family home, you can really live in this, I was like, well, actually you probably couldn't because it all looks really nice. But by the same token, she has done an amazing job, and I like Melissa. It's like my weird toxic trait with jerseys, like I really like Melissa. I feel like that's weird to unpopular to say, but I really like her.
I think people can like whoever they want to like.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um so this party, I
Well, the big thing, sorry, go ahead.
what would you wear?
What I wear?
Because white,
Oh,
white and yellow as a theme to
mm,
me, I
I think I would. Yeah, I did kind of when they started all arriving in the yellow. I was like, oh, I kind of hate this theme. Like, I think I would. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I would do. Okay, I'm not really a fashion person, says he sitting in front of you in a Carly Rae Jepsen t-shirt.
mm,
But like one fashion brand I am aware of is Jacquemus, that French brand where the like really hot French guy is the designer, and they always do the shows and like on the outdoors with loads of celebrities watching something in like a forest or a field, and he does like these really nice kind of summer linens and like bright colors. I feel like something like that, like
Yeah.
real like European like summer vibes. I would try and go for. I'd probably just wear a pop star t-shirt and like a yellow cardigan or something. But that's if I were really going there. It'd probably be like a Madonna t-shirt and some that had a fleck of yellow in, knowing me.
It is also funny, just like watching this theme. All I could think about was one, Shannon Bedore, two, Yolanda Hadid.
Yeah, the lemons, the lemons. They should have had like one of them arrive. Just Shannon could have said, "Is Shannon friends with Melissa or any of the Jersey women?" I don't think so.
I think Shannon keeps to herself.
Aren't they? Who? So hang on. Well, Miss Tamara friends with Melissa?
I think so. I think,
Well, that's an orange, not a lemon.
yeah. I think like Tamara's also friends with like the two Jays, the two Jersey Jays. I think
Oh
they
yes, the podcast
exist
network.
under
Yes,
their
the
podcast
podcast
network.
umbrella.
Yeah.
The one that you between that and Jeff Lewis Live, they're two media empires that you're keeping very close tabs on.
With two T's, not as much.
But you're like this show's 2T correspondent, and you're this show's Jeff Lewis Live Sirius XM correspondent. I can tell you, I have learned so much about Jeff Lewis Live purely because of you.
No episode today.
I saw that what's his name? John Arthur Hill had Cosmo Queen of Melrose on the other day, and I'm obsessed with Cosmo Queen of Melrose. So I was like, oh my god, my worlds collide with Brendan's. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah, I love Sirius XM. If you want to give me a job there.
Put Come Through Queen on Sirius
Yeah.
XM. I mean, come on, it's a no-brainer. So obviously Danielle was the first to arrive at the party, and then I thought it was interesting once Rachel got there that they started this strand that I thought was really interesting the whole episode about the housewarming gift for Joe and Melissa
Yes.
that Teresa wanted her to bring, that she was like, I would obviously not bring that. And Melissa's like, I don't want that. I mean, this is a side of Melissa where I'm like, I'm making it really hard to like you, being like, it's probably bugged. I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, having an Apple
It's a
tag or
fucking,
whatever.
it's a bottle of wine or whatever. What was it? Was it whiskey or?
I think Johnny Walker Blue Label.
It's a whiskey then. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, it's booze. It's booze.
And then I did love when they were talking about it. Then the next shot is Dolores walking up with the bottle.
This episode really tested the limits of Dolores the Peacemaker, because she's like, look, I don't know, they just told me to bring it. Even she was like, I can't really. Like, here, just take the bottle. Like, I don't know what to say.
It also tested cinematography between that shot and then also later in the kitchen when
yes,
Dolores is talking to Jackie and we see in the background Marge conniving.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny actually when they have these big parties in their homes, and the homes are obviously usually, strictly in this show, quite big.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's funny seeing production use that to advantage, even when they were zooming in on Joe throwing the letter into the fire, and they were like, shh. I was like, they're lucky to have this massive home. It's not a shore house with a tiny front deck. This is like prime real estate.
Yes.
And even, yeah, I mean, what did you think of when they went outside and Dolores made a point of giving Joe the bottle, and Melissa's like, I'll put that downstairs in his. What did you make of what he said about the card and the peace offering? Like, do you think it strikes me that he is still very hurt by the whole thing,
Yeah, I just, with him and Teresa, just in general, they're both so stubborn in a way that is so off-putting to me that I'm like, just make up, please. Because obviously they claim to not want to make up, but obviously like it both really affects them a lot. So either make up or I guess shit or get off the pot, basically.
I would agree with you to a point, although I thought it was really interesting. And I like Melissa, but Joe, I'm like a little iffy on sometimes. I thought it was so interesting when Teresa talks about it now. It's very much like, I've got me and Louis, and we're a blended family, and there's all, okay, my kids are going to college, but there's all of us, and I have this life. Whereas Joe really does bring up, our parents are gone.
Mm-hmm.
We are the last people left. What are we going to do? I mean, look, you could get into the gender politics or Italian American culture or whatever, but Joe seems really stuck on, you have fucked up the family dynamic. Now, that's his reading it. You could argue they both have.
Totally.
Whereas Teresa is, in a strange way, has moved on one level. So I don't know. Like the thing I found really wild because I don't know where I sit on this particular character on the show was Jen Fessler's hot take on that in the confessional. I was like, who asked? Who asked you to be like, I think this is all for show to show us? I was like, I know you're Team Teresa now, but this feels wild for you to come out with this.
Yeah, I
Am I
mean,
just a Jen hater? I don't
well,
know.
no,
I
I
don't know.
mean they call her on the show. They call her Messy Fessler, so that's her
I just
role.
Jen Fester, I'm finding very hard to read because at first she came in, I thought, oh my god, she's so herself, and the vibe is like a nice change of energy because
Yeah,
Jersey's usually another kind of energy. And now I feel like she just drank the Kool Aid so fast, got the like Housewives makeover, wants to be besties with Teresa because she knows it's more screen time. I'm just like, it just feels. I mean, I think food is a little sweaty, but actually, I think food is more organic. With Jen, I'm like, damn, you just drank the Kool Aid so fast.
yeah, and it's interesting. Jen and Jackie are both in a similar spot on that level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
weirdly, Jen is like being less messy about it, but then I'm also loving Jackie's energy here. Like she's
Yes, I know. It's kind of unhinged. Like, yeah, because obviously we get all that, after the conversation with the housewarming gift, we get into the back and forth, Rachel explaining what happened to the rest of the women and Jackie kind of insisting that, well, there was no way it was going to go well because you're friends with two anti-Teresa people.
yeah.
So I think is I mean, I see where she's coming from, but I'm like, well, actually, in a world where Jennifer Aiden is at this party and is able to be civil to Melissa, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that Rachel would have got a somewhat apology and been able to be at least copacetic with Teresa, you know?
It is the Jennifer Aiden of it all is so interesting and so wild to me because like in her conversation with Danielle, I was like, oh, she's making like some interesting, good non-housewivesy points about like how you should treat people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But then she flipped and got really like Jill Zarin first season of Roni being like, it should have said Aiden plastic surgery on the step and repeat. At this event
Yeah,
that wasn't
like
even filmed.
I love how, yeah, because to hear Jen explain it first, she's like, you gotta be humble, honey. I'm here to bring you back to earth. And you're like, yeah, fair enough. And then she's like, what about my husband's business? I'm like, hang on. This is bizarre. It was interesting too, because obviously Danielle explained her side of this whole charity event thing, and the argument being, I made a spot in the room for just us to hang out, and it was overcrowded.
Hmm.
And then is it Rachel, that girl who started all the pot stuff last year? She was friends with that other girl, so like that did make me sympathize with Danielle a bit. Like I do think Danielle really wants to be famous, and I don't doubt that she's a bit of an ego, but I could see her logic of, and actually, to be honest, that's smart. Like if you're doing these events, it is smart to have a spot where you can all hang out and then go back out and press the flesh
Hmm.
and get the money. Like I don't think that's actually devious. I think that's good organizing. So it was funny seeing them kind of clash and I guess somewhat make up around that. But yeah, Jen is. I feel like Jen's having a kind of quiet season, but she is very entertaining. Even when she arrived and she's supposed to be like making nice at Melissa, and she's like, usually there'd be someone at the door to do this. I was like, oh my god, she just can't help herself. I think she would do well without Teresa there. I think it would force her to kind of mix and match because she is very compelling. Even when Jen annoys me, I'm like, okay, there's a reason they've kept you around,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
to your point, even at the kind of like near the end of the party, when she finally does say hi to Joe, and she's like, her intention is to be nice to him, but then
Yeah.
he like offers her a shot, and then she makes a dig about like, oh, maybe you've had a few too many shots already.
Yeah, she's just such a little troll. Like she kind of makes me laugh. And then obviously that sets up everything with Jackie because Jackie gets involved there, and Margaret is pissed off when she hears what Jackie has said. And then Margaret is kind of not having a good season, and I'm a little bit over her. But this week, I really did appreciate her being like, "Oh, I'm gonna talk to her." Like I was like, "Okay, we actually need this energy. Like
The
we need Margaret in full flow."
the Jackie and Dolores conversation with Margaret screenshotting in the background, and then fucking Joe Benigno holding up his phone across the room to Dolores, be like, look at this. And then Dolores putting on her little reader glasses, looking at the phone and being like, sorry, I'm just checking on my dogs. And then being like, you call me a slob?
Now, just to quickly rewind for a second, when Jackie and Margaret had their disagreement, and Jackie, who seemed a little overserved, allegedly, possibly, went over to give Joe Benigno a hug, and then
Oh my
Margaret's like,
god.
"Don't do that," which made him holding the phone up later even funnier because I was like, he went back to Margaret's side so fast.
That was
Yeah,
unhinged energy, and I think they were trying to present Jackie as a little
messy
overserved
Jesse.
because she fell at one point.
What the drink held aloft, I was like, "Oh damn, that's pretty hardcore." But yeah, the Dolores Jackie interaction where Jackie was like trying to kind of it's explain it's not that bad to call someone a slob, and then also be like, well, you should hear what Margaret says about you, and Dolores been like, yeah, well, she didn't write it down. Like, I just
I
thought that was
know.
so funny. I was like, oh, she was really annoyed. Like, I love the way Dolores is like, you'd want to get away from me now. Like, I'm actually gonna kill you. Like, you could tell she was like, this is not gonna end well for you if you don't walk away. I thought that was
I
amazing.
know.
What was it she said? She's smarter than you.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm a slob, really? I mean, I would be pissed off too, because we've all talked shit about people, but like some things if I heard someone said, I would really be like, excuse me?
Yeah,
Someone said, if someone said I was annoying, I'd be like, fine, you think I'm annoying. Am I a slob?
and it's over
That
something
didn't
so stupid like not being tagged in an
Yeah.
Instagram photo.
Because if she had said, I found her, I think she can be inconsiderate. That was, I have found her to be rude. You kind of go dramatic, but fine. It sort of chimes at where your brain went. But if someone didn't tag you in a photo, you wouldn't be like, they're a slob. It's like, what? And then I loved Dolores. I love when on this show, there are these New Jersey isms that, where things have a real weight in their world they wouldn't have elsewhere.
Yeah.
Dolores earnestly being like, where I'm from, slob is a very strong thing to say. I was like, okay, thank you for clarifying the what's the word, the meaning of slob.
Yeah, I mean, like, speaking of like tri-state area, our friend Dan uses the word slob all the time.
Has he called you a slob?
Um, I don't think
You
to.
should hear what he says about
I
you.
don't
You should
think
hear
to
what he
my
says about
face
you.
yet, but maybe after he hears this.
He's smarter than you. He's smarter than you.
Um, uh, Anything else about Jersey before we kind of move on?
Not really. I did think, maybe this is sacrilegious, I did think during all that stuff, because they were in the house party for a while, a lot of stuff happened. I was like, they don't really need Teresa. Like, this works without her. Like I was like, if they got one or two new people with a slightly different energy, I think they could very easily,
Mm-hmm.
just because the Melissa Teresa thing has become such a roadblock.
Yeah.
And obviously, so I did think that, and then also I did, like, when the preview for next week came up, I did gasp because I was like, oh my god, the fight is next week. What are we gonna even see? What are they gonna tell
I
us?
know.
That's so bad to be so excited, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So
Because that does seem like a fork in the road for this season.
yeah, that's true. So you're saying we don't have to hug anymore?
Well, on a podcast where it has been said many times, we will hug again. I'm saying maybe if we shouldn't hug at all, we certainly shouldn't hug Joe Benigno when we're fighting with his wife. We shouldn't do that. And we certainly shouldn't hug when we've called people slobs in text messages.
I mean, Jackie is now head tree hugger, so she's all she can do is hug.
It's just such a weird. I know they had the scene together last week. Last season, I felt like they gave Jackie a bit of a rough edit, and I did feel bad for her. But now I'm like, I just don't think she knows how to place herself, because she went into this knowing probably she was friend off for real this time, and yet she's almost more messy as a
Yeah.
result. Like, her and Jen Fester are kind of getting my nerves because I feel like they're both trying to pot stir in these group scenarios because they don't have much one-on-one time, and so
Yeah.
it's just a bit. For me, the best friend of characters are ones who are kind of light and a little bit above the fray because they don't need to be that messy. Now, I know Miami is a weird example because the friends off of Miami are like basically full time, but like,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I think of the great friend ofs and other shows. I'm like, they know how to handle themselves.
Well,
She's a slob. She's a slob. She's a slob.
I like our old school Jersey friend ofs who had nothing to lose. I don't think they were even considered friend ofs back in the day because the language didn't exist back then. But Kim G and Kim
Mm-hmm.
D, like, going full throttle because like they don't
Yeah.
care about like public perception of them, I think was a little more fun.
Your good friend Kim D.
Oh my
Your
god.
phone buddy.
I bet you if you called whatever numbers listed on Posh's Instagram right now, Kim D would pick up. And she would be
Do you think she?
very nice.
Do you think she would deliver like posh products or posh calendar to Ireland? Do you think I could pay the shipping fee?
Yes. Oh my god, posh pop up in Dublin.
Oh my god, and I can be like, yeah, oh my, that's actually not a bad idea. After all the shopping they did when they were in Dublin last time, please. I wish they were coming back to Dublin
And
again so I could stalk them.
I could watch through the portal.
Yes. Oh my god, the portal needs to. You know, way like on Housewives, a certain thing in the zeitgeist features on multiple things. Like they'll all suddenly be getting those cryo baths, or they'll all go axe throwing. They all need to have a moment in the portal. Like New York needs to go to the
Yeah.
portal. New Jersey needs to go to the portal. Summer House can go to the portal.
For
I
people
don't know
don't
the cast.
for people who don't know what the
Sorry.
portal is, there for some reason it must have been like the Irish Tourism Board or the American Tourism Board like set up this thing called the portal in New York. It might still be there in Madison Square Park, where
Mm-hmm.
it showed a feed between that part of New York to a part of Dublin. And then
Yeah.
it ended up getting shut down for a while because people were flashing people through the portal.
And they were, holding up memes that were not very nice for people. To be honest, it's in Dublin, it's in the city centre, but it's in this part of town that people are a bit snobby about and has had its problems over the years. So people are like, why is it there? It's just going to be drunk people and messiness and da 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 da, which I hate because I actually used to live around the corner from where the portal is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually this art project that has been done in other cities. I think it was in somewhere in Poland before. Like it's been done in other places, but the one in Dublin and New York got a lot of press and a lot of attention.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think we'll see Bryn Whitfield at the portal this season of New York.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely, definitely.
Bryn and Jessel will be like, oh my god, that guy's really hot the other side of the portal. Jess will be like, you should try and get his number.
Oh my god. One more thing I wanted to mention before we move on from Jersey. I forgot about it, but Mr. Fuda invoked the Gia cocaine
Oh
Jackie
yeah.
thing to, I guess, like say that his 17-year-old self didn't deserve to be slandered by Teresa.
Which was funny because like now Jackie and Teresa are hugging again.
Yeah.
So to see that brought up was so fascinating. I mean, yeah, there was some great stuff here. Obviously, as you mentioned, the cinematography of Margaret looking at texting from afar, but also Jen Aiden looking over her shoulder and reading the message and being like, "Oh," it was really funny.
I mean, I think
It's just, "Oh, that's terrible."
I think it was a good episode. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
yeah.
myself. So
Hopefully, it doesn't hit the skids next week after the fight. It feels like something is because I'm watching it now, being like, "What do you mean there's no reunion? Like this is fine, but obviously something is about to go
yeah.
down." It's kind of scary. It's like a horror film. It's like there's tension brewing.
Do you want to move on to Dubai?
Yes, I was gonna say usually you guys like let's fly all the way, but I'm like that's a long flight, so I don't know. Let's take a 14-hour flight to Dubai.
What is Have you watched all of Dubai?
I have. I do feel a little bit conflicted about it because there's obviously this conversation about Dubai as a place where its treatment of, for example, its queer citizens is not great.
Yeah.
Dubai, the argument is that Dubai was kind of built off the back of slave labor effectively. It's kind of this paradise for the rich and wealthy, and it's sort of built on the backs of people who weren't treated very well. So I do feel a bit of a strange sense of guilt watching the show because
Mm-hmm.
it is effectively a propaganda piece about how fabulous Dubai is. But then I also sometimes I'm like, I'm watching shows about places in America that are in some ways as bad. So I have had a weird ethical thing about it, and yet I've still watched every frame.
Mm-hmm.
So what that says about me, I don't know. You can call me a hypocrite if you want. But yeah, I enjoyed season one was fine to like a little bit dull, but I thought there was potential and some good characters. They had a strong reunion, and I do think the momentum's here. So the huge break that they took is baffling to me because this season so far has been really good, and I'm like, this could have aired a year ago and would have done really well. But I don't know if they were keeping it because there's less baggage with the women for a time where they could place it wherever they need it on the schedule. Like the other
Uh-huh.
cities, there's much more coverage of them, and their things move very quickly because they're maybe being photographed near where they film. Whereas Dubai is, I also think, I don't know how true this is, but Lindsay Lohan always says there's no paparazzi in Dubai, that
Okay.
it's outlawed there. So I do wonder if there's less leaking of stuff in Dubai.
That makes
If
sense.
that's
Yeah.
why they can hold a season. I still think it's insane that effectively 2 years later we're getting season two. And when you've got people in that cast, like right off the bat, Chanel Ayan is an MVP of the whole franchise to me. She should be on. I know she's doing trailers, which is
Mm-hmm.
amazing, but like she could easily do a girls trip. She could easily be, transplanted into one of the American shows. Caroline Stanbury, I still have a soft spot for because of Ladies of London.
Sure.
There's women in this group who I think could hang with, women of any other franchise.
Agreed on all of that. Yeah, I think with Ion, especially, she's having like a really good season because she's just like letting herself be easier and breezier, and she's not really like last season was all about like her and Stanberry fighting,
Yeah.
and I think it's better for Ion to be a little above the fray this season for sure.
Also, it's funny how strangely, and I'm sure get into it, like Chanel Ayan has taken a step back in a way, but her friendships have caused other people to have falling out. So that's what, like, she's kind of creating the drama without even having to try, which is a sign that you're kind of the MVP of the group because they're like everyone is kind of talking about your relationship with everyone else.
Exactly. Speaking of that, like we had the big kind of blow up between Stanberry and Brooks last episode.
Yeah,
Brooks, there's
there's
something off.
something going on.
Yeah.
Even I'm just like, look, obviously not to pathologize, not to judge, but we're also doing a Housewives podcast, so the drinking feels a bit when she gets drunk. I'm like, oh, this is noticeably kind of jarring, and
Mm-hmm.
like we've seen a lot of drunk people. I see a lot of drunk people in my job. I'm like, okay, I'm like, if I'm taking it back, it's not good. So it was interesting that kind of was where they left last week, and then we open on Caroline in that. Oh my god, the amount of stuff in that
Oh
house.
my
I was like,
god.
this is disgusting. And I don't know if what did they say on what was the Chiron? It was Michael's house, aka Caroline's hovel. That I'm amazed that that gay guy has let them stay there that long. What kind of active allyship is that?
Did it say hovel? I thought it said hotel.
Oh, hotel. Sorry, I wrote my notes. My handwriting is kind of bad. I was like, "What did I write? Hotel, hovel." It's not a hovel. His home was beautiful, but she was making it a hovel. Also, I would argue.
Yeah, it's
Do you
just
know what's?
can't they get like a
Yeah, sorry.
storage unit or something?
Yeah, even just like she strikes me as the kind of person. I know there was people trying to clean it up last week, but she strikes me as the kind of person that could pay someone to put things in boxes every week. Anyway,
Yeah.
the something that I was really laughing at was so they're in that place and she's like, this felt super set up for the show, but I was still interested in this hypnotherapist thing
Mm-hmm.
because that woman Marissa, I went through like a months long period of getting Instagram ads from that woman for her weight loss courses, for her
Oh god.
trauma, quit drinking. I'm like, I don't need to quit drinking. What the? Like, I was getting hammered with her ads, and I got an ad for her stuff once, and because I was like, with Instagram ads, you go, what is this? And you watch it out of morbid curiosity.
Yeah.
I did that once, and then I
It
kept getting the
follows
ads for
you.
months.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking this woman is just giving me like it feels a bit BSy. And so when Karen was like, I've invited Marissa, I was like, no! I was like, not this woman again.
And like
She's following
this
me.
woman was on her podcast. Does her podcast even exist anymore?
I don't know. They filmed this basically, back in 800 BC. So, like, who knows if anything exists anymore. I was like, does Marissa live in Dubai? Because if she doesn't live in Dubai, did she fly out to do the show?
I don't
Like, do you know what I mean? It's not like if they were in London, I don't know. Anyway, I just was laughing when that woman arrived. I was like, I have heard this woman's voice on my Instagram so many times. And just watching the rich people kind of trauma porn of
yeah.
I had sent to boarding school. I was like, okay, cry me a river. Like the Sergio thing is very weird though. They are so codependent.
But
It's very odd.
I was about to say though, last season I was like, what is this relationship? But like this season I'm like, it works.
I do think they're in love. Like I think they're obsessed with each other, and I think it's real because I know there's a kind of, oh, like he's her toy boy. I think she is in love with him, but I also think they're really in too deep. Like it's a bit too much.
Yeah, and like they obviously didn't communicate properly before they decided to get married because like she obviously is
Hmm.
done with like the kids part of her life.
Yeah,
Like how old is her daughter? Like 17?
17.
17 then,
Yes.
so I guess like probably 19 now.
Yeah,
And
probably like 35 now. It's been that long since it fucking filmed. Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
so just
I
like to
mean,
see them like she's going through the process of like IVF, right? I don't know exactly where she is in the
mhm.
process. So I I'm concerned.
Yeah, there's such a you know what, it is good for the show, I suppose, but it is such a strange dynamic because in a way, yeah, it's just and then every so often he'll have a flash of trying to be like, well, I'm the man, but then he goes fully into like, you're my mom.
Yeah.
Even her being in the therapist and being like, I won't be a mom to him anymore. I won't baby him. I was like, this is wild.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't read. I know she's older than him, but she does. I mean, some people might think it's cringy, but I do think she has a younger energy. Like, I think she likes to get glammed up and go out. Like, she's not looking to be too settled down,
Yeah,
you
and I
know?
think there's something like when she left London and moved to this new place, I think she was like, not to use Ramona Singer, I think she was kind of like renewing herself in a lot of ways. Whereas London, she had to be like more prim and proper conservative because like
Hmm.
she was known and knew everybody, and all the rules that come with like British culture. And then in
Yeah.
Dubai, obviously a different set of rules, as you touched on, but like I think she was able to kind of reframe her life and do a lot more of like the going out, like hanging out, making new friends, that type of thing. And so it's just an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then it's been interesting watching the kind of Brooks, Lisa, Talene. Talene, I'm really like they're the three of them hanging out was interesting, but I actually am enjoying Talene. I think she's good value. I think she's interesting.
Talene jumps off the screen. I think she
Yeah.
is a great addition. Her like her twin Jen Aiden really injected her with
Yeah.
some like with some energy. It is
She has
wild.
Aiden vibes. Yeah, she has Aiden vibes. Yeah. Do you think they look alike?
Yes, definitely at certain angles. Obviously,
Yeah,
they're not
true.
identical, but like they definitely look a lot alike.
Also, let's just do the shallow bit. Like her husband's hot. He's got like I was like he is very charismatic. I was like I can totally see why they're together. Like
Kind of
I
reminds
like
me of
yeah.
Dr. Nicole's husband, just in like
Yes, 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 yes. Like confident guy who's obviously wealthy and kind of like that gives him this like, energy where you're like, okay, I get it, I get it, I get it. And I like, Brooks is interesting because part of me is like, you are kind of crumbling in front of us, but also she is very compelling. And there's a little strand of villain in her, but she's also kind of a bit of a point of view character because she's very like, there's something a direct about her. I don't know. I find her interesting.
yes, and she clearly of all these people desperately puts it out there that she wants to be famous.
Yes, for sure. Whereas like Lisa Milan, I think is a little more reserved. So when you see her and Brooks together, you can see Lisa being like, "Oh my god, like you're crazy. What is going on here?"
Yeah, and obviously all these people want to be famous, but like with
Yeah,
Caroline Brooks, it just like the need and want is just like so on the surface there. It's like oh,
yeah. She's ready to
it's
go
like
at all times.
kinetic there. Like
But you know who really wants to be famous, and I have gotten such a bad vibe off of since season one is Sarah. I think Sarah's really false.
yeah,
I like the stuff with her kid later on, but I just find her energy in the group scenes and Sergio, you're my brother, come sit with me. I'm like, get over it. Like it's so fake guru, like wellness influencer bullshit to me.
yeah,
No offense to any wellness influencers who listen.
yeah, it's off-putting to me as well. Like her when she, like you said, pulled Sergio aside and was like, "You aren't okay, are you?" And I'm like, "Don't start
Fuck
reading
off. Like
people
I
like
would be like,
that."
leave me alone. I mean, this is bad to bring up, but I still think sometimes about season one back, in the dark ages when that first aired, and they did a before and after of Sarah, like when she, how many years ago, and what she looks like now, and it was one of the most like I was like, whoever cut that together hates you. It was one of the harshest before and afters I've ever seen. I was like, oh my god, they did her so
I
dirty.
forgot that they
They were like,
had put that.
oh, it was so bad. I was like, fuck, she doesn't look the same. Like, there's nothing. Those are two different people. I was like, oh, they did her. And listen, what she did, like, the zhuzh she had, she looks beautiful. But I was just like, oh, they did you dirty. They didn't even just kind of go, here's before one procedure. They were like, here's before all of them. I was like, oh my god. That's one of the shadiest editing things I've ever seen on Housewives. And they love to clown all these women. I still go, they got you there. They got you, gal.
Yeah, I really forgot that they had actually aired that on the show. I thought it was just pictures I had
So
seen
bad.
online.
It was so bad. And they introduced her friend Saba, who seems fun. Although to me, I'm like, I'm curious. I don't know how much friend of vibes we really get because it seems like a short enough season. But it's interesting to have another girl in the mix.
Yeah, and I had forgotten that she was actually going to be a full friend of. So then I was like, oh, they're like really talking about her a lot. And then I Just realized she got the photo shoot. Um, but it is funny, you know how like Bravo releases like bios for everybody or like what's going to happen to them this season.
Yes, yes, yes.
The only thing that they say about Saba is Saba appears as a friend.
Because you and Dan love to go to those and like be like, guys, like, guess what Bravo said is gonna happen? And like for that, they're like, this person was in the room, a camera was in her direction, she had hair and makeup done for the event. Like they really said
But I mean,
nothing.
like she
That's
had a lot
funny.
to say about, especially about Ion at
Mhm.
the party. So I think she's gonna try to go in. So we'll
I know.
see.
I mean, I love Diane arriving with a disco ball. I feel like at times it feels like she's doing the fashion thing to just have a moment on camera, but her arriving in disco glam and seeing the disco ball and being like, I'm gonna carry that. I love the way she kind of acts and like she improvises effectively. I was like, that is kind of fun. That's the model in her being like, oh, we'll use that as a
Well, and
prop.
she loves a prop. I mean, like last week it was the pineapple. I mean, the
Yes.
goat last year. Um, she loves. She's the carrot top of Real Housewives of Dubai.
That's not a phrase I thought you were going
Prop
to come out with.
comedian.
I mean, so the big headline at that party is that Caroline Stanbury uninvited Caroline Brooks. Like that, that's an interesting move to do early. I mean, look, how far into filming they really were, I don't know, but like early in a season to do something like that is interesting because it's kind of saying, no, 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 I'm not gonna like just do group scenes. Everybody, I'm pissed off with this
And
person.
uninvited her as like Brooks was like, wasn't she in glam?
Can you imagine getting the call? I just didn't think you should come. I'm like, okay, that's a little harsh. I also loved the moment where Caroline's boob popped out and she looked into the camera. Did you clock
Yes, I
that?
love that.
She went into the frame. I was like, you've been on 2 reality shows now. You know you're not meant to look into the camera. I thought that was funny that she was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
as if to say, do not put my boob on the show.
Mm-hmm. Um, any other like thoughts about this episode you wanted to really dive into?
Yes, I'm consulting my notes here, the ones that I can read at the very least. I thought Sarah gone on the date was kind of blah. I didn't really care about that. I liked the fact that it was through Talene. I think that's a good way to keep the newer people in the mix. But
Mm-hmm.
like Sarah being like, "You're not into UFOs." I'm like, "Yeah, most people aren't." Like Sarah has such wackadoodle like BSer vibes to me. I'm like, of course you want to like deep dive alien conspiracy theories. Like, of course you do.
I think it's like she wants to do that because she wants to keep everything on the surface and not really. She pretends to be deep, like with what she cares about, but she's not actually
Yeah.
deep.
That is my issue with her. It feels very fake. I thought the strongest scene she had all week and one of the best scenes in the episode was her talking with her kid because I'm like, clearly you really talk to your kid and you really relate to your kid, and that's not an easy thing to do, particularly when she's gone through a lot in her relationships. And I was like, I'd prefer more of this energy than the
Mm-hmm.
kind of I'm so above it all and I'm so wise. I'm like, oh my god, get in the mix. Like it's Housewives. We open this season beefing out Beyonce concert. Like get it together. I kind of liked seeing Lisa with her mom because I find Lisa's really charming. I think she's a really likable character.
Yeah, and like her and her mom walking through like the markets and having the conversation about, well, I thought you were gonna stay there for 2 years
I
and then
know.
move back.
Well,
I think that's
I
tough for like to have a long distance relationship with your family that's that far is tough.
I know because I've had that in my family. Like, my sister lived in Vancouver for about 5 years. Well, Canada, different parts of Canada, but mainly Vancouver for a good chunk of that time, and then Victoria as well. And like, we would go over and see her. My parents in particular would go and visit her. But like, when someone's quite far away, like it just makes the kind of catching up with people a little bit more prolonged. Even like if you think about it, like I know Lisa and her husband probably say to her mom, "Oh, like we'll sort you out.
Mhm.
We'll put you in a hotel. We'll pay for your flight, whatever." It's still an expensive place to visit. It's not like if you lived in a slightly different city to a person in the same country, the flight wouldn't be expensive. Like
Right.
going to Dubai is a bit of an
Yeah.
outlay. So I can kind of see her mom's point of view. I also just love, we know Lisa is wealthy and we know she's a nice house and she still is in the old part of Dubai going, I'm not paying that. I'm not a
Yeah.
tourist. No, 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 no. Like, I think you actually I hate haggling, but I think actually if you haggle, they respect you more and it's actually considered kind of weirdly polite to haggle because that's what you're meant to do.
Sure.
I'd be like 150, absolutely. Oh my, like give you a
I'll
tip.
pay
Was
more.
there
Yeah.
like, yeah, she's like, I'm not paying that, and I was like, bitch, you can afford it. Like, but I think it's the point. And the guy just goes, yeah, okay, straight away. I was like, okay, you're not meant to actually pay full price. I thought that's the kind of, I mean, that's the kind of detail this show does well, that
Mm-hmm.
like it does make it stand out from the other cities. Like you know, it's funny because the part of Dubai they spend most of the time in is so built up and it's so new money, and I'm like, this is a little bit gauche because it's so. Even last week when Tilleen was like, my husband helped build blah 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 this island, I'm like, I almost wouldn't brag about that. Like
Right,
that's
right. The
as much as
palm
I
or
just
whatever.
said
Yeah.
as much as I just basically said I would sleep with her husband, I still don't think you should brag about
Right, right.
that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I liked that. And then obviously, you know, in true Housewives fashion, we ended on a sit down with two women at war, like, you know, the two Carolines sitting down. And I can't tell if Brooks was 26 minutes late as a power play or if they leaned into it, the edit, or because there was something about Caroline Stanbury there looking gorgeous and fresh faced, being like, oh, she's not here.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is like clear. Even the phone call she was on as Brooks arrived, I could tell she was like, you better fucking sit down.
Yeah.
We have things to
That's like,
discuss.
it's classic, like Teddy and Dorit,
Very
Jessel
that.
and Cy, like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
greats.
The greats, all the greats. I mean, they sort of. It's interesting. It's basically the, as we mentioned earlier, the friendship with Ayan has really bothered Brooks, and she feels it's like a loyalty thing. Whereas Caroline's like, I want to keep us all. I think Caroline is coming from a TV perspective of,
Totally.
well, like, I've done this before, and I don't want to not have people to film with. Whereas Brooks is like, I'm your fucking friend. The one thing, sorry, I'm swearing so much. Oh my
It's
god.
okay.
Um, the one thing about this season that I think is giving it a bit of an edge compared to last year, and it's always why you want them to get a second season of any of these season of these shows, is you can tell they have developed relationships in the off season.
Mm-hmm.
Like this feels richer because Brooks clearly was speaking to Caroline Stanbury all the time, and Caroline Stanbury is kind of like a bit pissed off their friend has been so weird with her. I'm like, you can tell it's more real, and that's adding an interesting layer. Even the way Chanel and Caroline have become friends is that happened organically because they were obviously just connecting when they were doing press or at
Yeah.
BravoCon. Like, I kind of like that.
Being like,
So
we're the
yeah, I
biggest
like that.
stars of this show, so we are stronger together.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that's probably an element of it. Yeah. So I liked seeing their scene at the end, and I'm curious where their friendship goes. I'm sure, in theory, it's probably had several shifts even since they filmed. I mean, their reunion is going to be insane because they're going to be looking back on
Years.
so many different
Yeah.
parts. Yeah, years. And I, I just love next week. They're like, Chanel Ayan finds out her age by going to the dentist.
It's
The
so
idea that she
funny.
doesn't know what age she is. I'm like, what? She's going to turn to be 82? Like, this is so stupid to me. I can't wait to see what her actual age is.
Yeah. I love that. Um, okay. Let's go
Okay.
to the freak of the week and the one true queen. This is dealer's choice, meaning guest choice. So Connor gets to talk about his freak and queen.
Okay, I think for Freak of the Week, is somebody going to match my freak? As Tinashe would say, our Freak of the Week is Justin Timberlake for getting arrested for, was it drinking while intoxicated, is what the police report said. So he got arrested in Sag Harbor, very LuAnn coded,
Mm-hmm.
very Real Houses of New York OGs coded to get arrested basically in the
Sonia
Hamptons.
Morgan.
Yeah. Sonia Tees. We have a mugshot. We have a picture of him walking out of the prison. Also have a hot take about this. Well, I have two hot
Okay.
takes. One that people say a lot that I just want to chime in on is when you're that rich, just get the Uber.
Right.
Like, just get the Uber.
Yeah.
Also, I'm a Britney fan. I'm a Janet fan. I'm flying to Berlin to see Janet perform this year. I don't play when it comes to Janet, and I don't play when it comes to Britney. But I have to say to my fellow millennials, after a point, we can let that go a little bit. We can clown Justin. We can be like, yeah, it's kind of karma. You were a dick in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the memes and bringing Britney into everything, I actually find it kind of gross. Like Britney posts anything like, that's about the mugshot. I'm like, do you think Britney watches the news? Britney is talking about a flower pot in her garden. She does not know what's going on. Like, I find it like, it's just this weird, like, people think it's still 2002. And I'm like, you're actually giving Justin too much power in this situation. Just like he's made a fool of himself.
Yeah, and I think like especially
We're
after
good.
the book that Brittany put out where she
Yes,
said her piece, I
exactly.
think let it rest a little bit. Um but yeah, it does fit into the Housewives podcast because this is Sag Harbor, this is LuAnn's home. I've walked those streets.
You know what they're gonna have to I fuck those streets. You're pounding the pavement. What they need to do, because Justin's gonna have to do some image rehab now. I mean, he's needed it for a while, I think. He should do a sit down with Andy Cohen where Andy Cohen goes out to the house to talk to him in the style of
Oh my
LuAnn. Can
god.
you imagine? Andy opens the door, or Justin's, he's like, hey, sit down. That would be
Yeah.
amazing. Or he covers the LuAnn song. I mean, I don't know if he's gonna. The rumor is like, he has to go back on tour, and like, will he? And the Justin thing is funny. Like, there's shades of the JLo stuff off it where people have kind of just decided this turn of the millennium star is actually a piece of shit and everyone's going to hate on them now. And part of me's like, you know what? A little pushback is good for you, Justin. You've had it easy for a while. But also at
Totally.
times I'm like, you guys are so obsessed to the point where I'm like, you're actually giving this person too much
Yeah.
credit. Like, his album is going to flop anyway. Who
Yeah.
cares?
Exactly. So
Anyway,
let's move over to the Queen. Who do we have?
it's been a slow week for the news, so I want to go back to one of our shows this week and give someone Queen, not just because she's a fan of my work, because she gave us classic angry housewife, but like with restraint, which I love. I think it's Dolores for
Okay.
just politely but firmly telling Jackie to get away from her. The reading glasses to quote unquote check on her dogs. I just, yeah, even her explaining Slob, I think is one of my favorite moments of the last few months. Like, for where I'm from, a Slob. I was like, that was
Yes,
amazing.
it's classic.
I
It's
think
classic Italian New Jersey vibes.
it's pasta sauce, center meatball fabulousness that we need.
Well, great. You're welcome, Dolores. So thank you, Connor, for coming. I just
Yes,
noticed that
thank you for having
you're
me.
doing light Charlie XCX promo with the Brat cover behind you.
Oh yeah, I have the vinyl by me. Shout out to Warner who sent me the vinyl. They said they gave me the vinyl in a tote bag that said Brat Dublin, and in the bag there was a tiny troll doll, a pair of sunglasses, and glow sticks. I was like, whoever signed off on this PR drop is a genius. I was like, this is hilarious.
Amazing.
Shout out to Brat. I actually didn't mention Brat in the pre-show, but I mentioned plenty of other fun things in the
And
pre-show.
you mentioned Charlie enough this episode.
I did, didn't I? She's been on my mind, I think. Yeah, I mean, make like she can host a reunion, Nicki Minaj style.
Yeah, maybe not that far.
You're like, no, absolutely not. Well, thank you for having me either
Of
way.
course. Where can we find you on the internet?
I'm on Instagram and Twitter / X. It's Conor Behan is my handle on both. My podcast has been on hiatus for 2 years, but if you wanted to go into the back catalog of Housewives of Me, you can get it wherever you get your
I've been
podcasts.
on
If you're
twice on Ham.
you've gone ham twice. If you're ever in Ireland and you want to see me DJ, you can come to the George Thursday and Saturdays, and you can come to Penny Lane on Fridays. You could listen to my radio show wherever you are in the world on 2FM if you want, but that's a bit of a hassle. But yeah, I mean, listen, find me on Instagram and I'll be posting Housewives and about Brat and other annoying things.
Amazing. Well, thank you as always. You can find everything about me and Dan at comethroughqueen.com. And yeah, like, comment, subscribe, love us, love us. Please retweet.
Please retweet.
Bye.
See you next week.
I wanna see ya come through, Queen.